Hello, hello, everyone. Please come in, please come in. There's enough space for everyone. And while people are still coming in, I want to give us a quick shout out from our sponsor today, WireDash, which is a fantastic feedback SDK I built myself. It is really great. And we have a big new feature, which is WireDash Analytics. So it is totally free up to 10,000 monthly active users. And please add it to your app and enjoy the analytics on all platforms. It's not restricted to just Android and iOS. It works on all platforms, even IoT, coffee machines, whatever. And you can just see how many users you have. And just released yesterday, we now have custom events. So you can now track your custom events. And it's currently in beta, and I want to have your feedback on that. So please try it. Of course, you can get WireDash on pub.dev, and that's what we are here today. I want to talk about pub and package hosting. And package hosting is currently mostly only possible with the public version of pub. Today, I want to give you an overview what's possible with private package hosting, because in an enterprise environment, you really want to have private packages to share across your teams. So this is pub.dev. This is the public version we all use right now to get our dependencies. And the first question is, why do we actually need private package hosting? Aren't there like other solutions to this? First of all, I want to share code within my organization. This is really important for me and for many enterprises as well. But also, I work in an agency. I want to share code with all of my different customers and clients. And this is currently really hard with all the existing solutions. Maybe, I don't plan to do this, but maybe there will be paid packages. I would definitely pay for a package that solves all the video playback stuff, cross-platform. That would be great, and I'm willing to pay. But currently, with the current model, it is really hard to distribute your paid pub packages. And in other languages, it is quite easy. So why doesn't something like this exist for Dart? Also, in an enterprise environment, some enterprises enforce rules like special licenses that you allow your developers to use. So code without a license or with an improper license might not be able to get into your project. And you can control that at some other level. So that's another reason for private package hosting or mirrors of pub.dev. And there are even companies that do not connect to the internet at all. And for them, it's also very important to have a private version in their cellar that they can connect to. And you ask yourself, okay, why can't I use the Git references? Pub is supporting this, and this is great because I have an Android background, and when I used Android, I could not just get code from a Git repository. Nowadays, it is possible, but I was very happy when I saw that this is actually working in Dart, and I still use it today because it gives me very much flexibility. I have all the restrictions, the read-write permissions for individual users, for organizations, and so on and so forth. I can control all of that in GitLab or GitHub, and it works pretty good, except for a few things. So again, I'm working at an agency, and we tried this. And I get constant feedback from our developers that they have problems with Git dependencies. The major problem is that in an agency setup, you are not constantly working on the same project. Projects might be stale for a few months, and then you pick them up, and the first thing you do is update the dependencies. And when you update the dependencies, you only get the latest version of your Git dependency. So if you run pub upgrade, it always gets the latest version of the reference that you put in, usually the main branch, master branch, whatever. And the Dart tool only gets you the latest commit. This is a bit of a problem. We have a big team that is writing a dedicated UI library, and the team is constantly working on this. And while the team is working on this, they eventually have breaking changes. They have to upgrade the Flutter version and so on and so forth, update the dependencies. So it might happen that I come back into an old project, and from there I want to run pubget. It's still using an old version from like a year ago of Flutter, and I cannot get the latest version from the repository because it's incompatible. This doesn't mean that there are better versions in the Git log that I could use. For example, there might be a hotfix for that version that I used before they upgraded the Flutter version. Things like that are very hard, and especially if you're not only sharing one dependency, but multiple hundreds of dependencies. You definitely do not want to update your dependencies manually and resolve all the issues with the different versions manually. Because essentially you have to go into every repository, check all the commits until something that broke happens. So the dependency resolution of the pub tool is great, but it only works with private repositories or with repositories in general. So how can we do that? Let's look again what pub actually is. So we have the website where we can see all the packages, and we have the Dart pub tool, which is a CLI that we use to publish and consume packages. If you want to publish your package to a private repository, you enter this publish to, enter the URL of your private repository, and you also have to add a token that you can actually write into that repository. Every repository out there has a way to give you the token. Usually it's just a website and you copy paste it. You run Dart pub token add, enter the website. It must be the exact website or the exact link. It's usually either a link on the repository or a link that is dedicated for reading and writing. Or there's a different URL, either if you read or if you write. Because the limitation is that you only have one link associated to one token. This means if you share the token with your team, you can only read it, because usually you only share the read permission. But if you also want to publish it, it might be very helpful to have a separate link to publish it so that you are not mixing up those two tokens. On the other side, if you want to read something from a hosted repository or a non-pubdev repository, you also add the hosted URL, and then you put the link there. It will also get the token that you defined beforehand, otherwise it will crash, and then you can download the stuff. The token mechanism is quite good because it allows us to revoke tokens. If some people are leaving the company, if a client leaves us, we can revoke the tokens and go into a negotiation about a contract. The good thing about the CLI, or the endpoints the CLI is using to actually publish and get packages, is very specific, and there's a specification for this. Not so much for the website, it's rather custom, and all the different solutions I will show you today have completely different APIs. There's no standard. But at least we have the specification for the pub tool, all the APIs the pub tool is using. It's called the Hosted Pub Repository Specification version 2. And there you can see all the endpoints, all the information about how the token authentication should work. So if you have only this document, you should be able to just write your own Dart server or in any language, and you will become a Dart or Dart package repository. Let's look at the history of this specification. First of all, there was never a version 1, which is kind of strange, but it makes sense because the version 2 was released in 2019. I personally used Dart since 2014, a long time ago, so it makes sense that they start with version 2. I think there were many breaking changes in between. Those are the 4 people that actually work on the specification or have worked in the past on it, all from Google, none from the community. But I'm very glad that they actually did this, because only with the specification it was actually possible for providers of our repositories, our private repositories, to actually build a tool that is not breaking, or that they themselves are not breaking the tools that others built. The first big change came in 2020, actually. They deprecated one of the endpoints. It was an endpoint to get a specific version or all the information for a specific version. And I find this quite interesting because it makes sense to have an endpoint for a specific version in your repository to get the information, but the spec itself is only what the Dart tool is currently using. And it turned out that the Dart tool is only getting the list of all the versions for every repository. There is all the information for each one already included, so they don't have to make another lookup. And when Dart 2.8 came out, it actually made pub-get much faster because of that. And I find it interesting that they just deprecated one of the endpoints. I still recommend to implement it just to be backwards compatible. It should be fairly easy. In 2021, we got the biggest change yet, and that's the token authentication. I wouldn't standing here talking about private pub packages or hosting without this token mechanism, because only with tokens we get access. Before, it was also possible, but you had to use some private APIs and manipulate some files in your .pub folder in your home directory. So it was not a good way, and now we have a standardized way for authentication against all the pub repositories. Lastly, we got security advisories. That's quite new, and it's a new endpoint, and you should also implement it if your pub repository is using it. Okay, let's look at the different endpoints. We have one endpoint to get all the versions for a specific package. We have basically 3 endpoints to publish a package. It's a mechanism to, first you call the get on new, and then you start the process, then you upload all the files, and afterwards you complete it with a finalized call. It's rather custom, except for the first call. The rest could be anything. And the last thing is the advisories. So if you look at this and someone tells you, okay, can you implement this server? Yes, you can. It's quite trivial, except for the authentication. But yeah, we come to this. Let's look at the Dart website, what they have to say about custom package repositories. And custom package repositories, there are many providers, or at least 4 providers. So the first thing is you can implement the spec yourself, or you use one of the existing providers that you can use as a service. So let's go through all of them so that we can get an overview of what's out there and how it looks like, and if you eventually want to use it. Starting with Cloudsmith, I uploaded my package. This is our UI package. It's called CNCT UI. And the first thing you see is the README, or what I thought was the README, because that's actually only the description from my pubspec file. Not showing the actual README, which was a bit of a bummer because we write great documentation and it's not visible here. We get some metadata like checksums, where this is actually hosted. That might be interesting. File sizes and so on and so forth. We get the files. You can see at least all the files that I pushed here, but I cannot open them. Yeah. Speaking of pricing here, it's quite cool to have a free plan. I think that's okay. Not sure about the download bandwidth. If you only share it between your developers, that's probably not a problem because everything is cached locally. If you run CI, it might become a problem soon, so you have to upgrade to the Pro plan, and I think that's enough for most of us. If you need more traffic, yeah, you should talk to them. What I really liked about Cloudsmith is the token handling. First of all, you can also manually upload your packages, and they have a CLI, because before the token API existed, they had to write their own CLI that you're actually able to publish a package. It's now legacy, but you can still use it. And what I like is that they have organizations, repositories, and packages. It's very streamlined, and you can create as much users as you want and create tokens as many as you want. Also read and write tokens. So it's pretty sophisticated here, and I think there are not many features that you will miss. The next thing I want to talk is JetBrains Space. I mean, we are here at droidcon basically, so JetBrains is a big contributor to Kotlin. We all know JetBrains. They have a space, and this is a tool where you manage your repository. You can also upload packages there, and it's quite a good tool. You can see your packages here, all your different versions. You get the README, finally. So this is a part of our README. You can also get the dependencies. It's a pretty good tool, and I would strongly recommend you to use it because it's one of the simplest to set up. Especially their token management is great because you are not only able to create tokens for individual users, but also I as a user can create more than one token for specific repository, for specific clients with specific permissions. That's really great. Also, when I create a token, someone else from my team might be able to revoke this token. So it's not bound to my user account, but it's rather bound to the repository itself. Next on the list is JFrog Artifactory. That's the tool I have the most experience with because as an ex-Android developer and maintainer of Jenkins servers and so on, I worked with this tool a lot to publish jars. It's also possible to publish your Dart packages with JFrog, but keep in mind JFrog is a paid service. It is very enterprise. You get started with $150 per month, and you very, very quickly go into one of the business plans. They offer a self-hosted solution starting at 3,000 euros per month, per year, 3,000 per year. What I really liked about JFrog Artifactory is that they have the concept of virtual repositories. So you have your local repositories where you push your private packages. They also have access to pub.dev, and you can create your own virtual repository as a mix of all of those packages. So I would suggest that you create a virtual repository for each of your projects and then manually pick which packages you have access to. It is also one of the nicest user interfaces to actually manage the packages. It is a bit complex, but you get used to it with time. It has tons of features. Unfortunately, I was not able to create Dart tokens or pub tokens which only had read access. It might be a problem on my side. I maybe did not find it, but that was a problem. I only could create write tokens, but it might be my mistake. Technically, it should be possible. They have a lot of management for permissions with users, with like plain tokens. They have service accounts. It should work, but I couldn't get it done. Next on the list is a community package. Someone from our community created OnePub, which is their own service. It is created by Brad Sutton. I worked with him a lot. He's a great developer, so he created his own service. He was before working with other packages from the open source world, and now he created his own service. The design is interesting. But the features are great. At least I can see the README. I have highlightings. It's the greatest way to get a README actually shown. There are features like discussions. Why wouldn't you want to discuss something with the owner of this package internally? That's a great idea. Also interesting, a dependency graph. I like it. It might not be useful because you can't see much of it, but when you hover over it, you get more insights. And it's very interesting because these features are unique. I haven't seen them anywhere else. So great work here. Unfortunately, it requires me to use the OnePub CLI, and it is not happy if you have comments in your pubspec YAML. So I had to remove all my comments to get it working. It was a bit annoying to figure this out. Also, I'm not a big fan of the pricing here. The pricing is per member. And for me, in an enterprise environment, we have this shared design library. The shared design library is shared across multiple teams, and usually everyone wants to have access. So it's easily like 30, 50 people with access, which would get very, very expensive here. Compared to the others where I pay like 150 euros, here I would pay 500 euros, something like that. Here's a big summary of all the hosted variants. Especially interesting is for me that none of these solutions offer Dart analysis. None of these solutions offer API documents, which is trivial. You just have to run Dart docs, you get static HTML files, and you can host it somewhere. I don't understand why it's not implemented for any of those. Changelogs, actually there's, changelogs are actually missing, which is, I simply don't understand it because it's not that hard. The changelog is part of the repository like the README, why not pass both? And one of my goals was always to have a custom domain. Because if I share as an agency my private packages with others, I don't want to have like an Artifactory domain. I want my phantom domain, pub.phantom.dev. That's only possible with Artifactory in the as a normal plan. Of course, JetBrains Spaces can be self-hosted, for example, so you could accomplish it there, but the others simply do not allow us. The pricing, I would say JetBrains pricing is the best one here. It's traffic-based, but I checked the traffic restrictions. You would usually never hit that, and if you hit it, you should definitely pay for it. And from a self-hosting perspective, only JetBrains Spaces and JFrog Artifactory have the option to self-host this. Artifactory is very expensive at like 3,000, starting at 3,000 euros per year. JetBrains Spaces might be a bit cheaper. I also thought about what about if I self-hosted myself on GCP, for example, the prices you see here. What I also found interesting is the permission handling. On PubDev, of course, we don't have permission. Everything is public. Cloudsmith was fine. JetBrains Spaces was really great because I could create as many tokens as I want. Artifactory was great except for the fact that I couldn't create a read token. And OnePub was fantastic except for the fact that I have to use the CLI in any case to get the token. I wish there was a way to get the token on the website as plain text. I would recommend JetBrains Spaces, and this is also what I intended when I came here. I would like to end this talk with use JetBrains Spaces, and here, by the way, is a solution. I created a small wrapper so that you can create your own custom domain for this. So I was working on this project. It was a lot of fun to create it. It is working. I created my own front end in Flutter, and I finally was able to publish my own packages through this proxy. And then I received an email or this tweet that JetBrains Spaces will be discontinued at the end of the year. It is still not clear when it will be discontinued. It is not clear which parts might be still in the new product, which is called Space Code. It's just focused on repositories, but I think packages could be part of it. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't trust it at this point that you can actually use it. So yeah, we have to go back and check out the other solutions. Or let's talk about self-hosting. Before we talk about self-hosting, what about the big ones, GitHub and GitLab? If I want to share my jars today, I would probably use GitHub packages and put my jars there. I pay for the space that I use or for the traffic or both, and it would be fine, like a few euros every month. Unfortunately, they do not support the Flutter packages. This also exists since 2021. There's not much activity, unfortunately. The same on the GitLab issue. But I will assure you it will come at some point. And that's also something, because we know that GitLab and GitHub will ship it eventually in the future, I wouldn't create a business for this because they are so cheap. So the business model of OnePub is questionable if GitLab or GitHub release their solutions. Let's see what is in the open source world. I mean, we have the specification. It should be rather easy to create your own pub. The first thing is the Dart team actually created a pub server. It's pretty cool because you can see the implementation from 5 years ago. It is discontinued, and but still interesting. You can look inside, and they have used it in the past, but it was not something that you could just spin up and use. It was like a set of components you could use to build your own. They discontinued it and just focused on just the pub dev website itself, or pub as we know it. Pub is completely open source and unfortunately only runs on App Engine. And by default, it runs on App Engine with like 32 instances. So it's not something you definitely want to self-host. You can reduce the number of instances. Still, you have to currently have like 3 machines on App Engine to actually get this started. One for search, one for the analyzer, and one for the app itself. which is separated in like an app and workers that are doing stuff. For example, here they run daily jobs for update package versions, export stuff, delete stuff here, run analysis there, updates, the pub score, and there are many things that are running in the background, like cron jobs, but they are not cron jobs, but they are just scheduled with timers. So you have to have a server that is running 24/7 that are continuously starting those workers. So yeah, it gets quite expensive. You need those free servers, App Engine servers. They cannot be small. I think some of them require like 8 gigabytes of RAM. And additionally, you need one database in Google Cloud. So roundabout at 200 euros is the minimum that you can get this running. I agree with Jonas here because he says this is not something one should self-host and use for self-hosting. There are other solutions out there. Let's see what is out there. I want to start with my favorite, which is MicroPub. Is anyone using a self-hosted solution right now? Please raise your hand. Yes, please shout, which solutions are you using? I couldn't hear it. Okay, I bet I will also handle this here. So first of all, MicroPub was released 2 years ago from Alois. I really like the concept here because the code is super simple, it is easy to understand. Unfortunately, it is not well maintained in the last 2 years, but the documentation is great to self-host it, and I'm pretty sure it is still working today, even though it never received many updates. There are other limitations, like you don't have user management, you have to hide it behind a proxy to make it secure. But yeah, things like this are solvable somehow. I mean, you could contribute to this, but you can see here like 50 stars. I don't see anyone using it. Nobody is raising any issues. I don't think anybody is running this right now. The next thing I want to talk is Unpub. I think this is the most popular, and this is actually used in production by quite many people. With Unpub, this is a screenshot of it. It has not many features. For example, like although it shows documentation, it only shows you the changelog, and but technically it is working. But all the stuff, all the workers that pub has in the background do not exist here. You can just upload packages and download packages. That's it. I would also like to have a download count, but things like that do not exist. What I find strange is that in the past, Unpub was part of the ByteDance organization. And I think last month or last week, it was switched to a single developer. So the whole repository was moved. I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing. It might indicate that there will be traction in the future. But as of right now, there was not a big update in the last 2 years. Issues are not answered. And yeah, but I know people that are running it right now, so it is possible. The documentation is not that bad. You can get it working. And also there was a package which is an installer. It was created by the same person that created OnePub. And unfortunately, this installer is also not working. So yeah. You have to go back to zero, just create your own Docker container and start it. What you have to think about, if you're self-hosting something, you always have to think about backups. So you're completely on your own here. They have no solution for this. Unpub has a user management with a Google account. You can change the OAuth provider in code, so you have to fork it and change it in code. There's no way to do it. If you're not changing it, you will sign in with the ByteDance Google account. I'm not sure if you want to share your information there. The next I want to share with you is PubNet, which is quite new. It was released last year, and although it indicates that there was not much activity in the last year, that's fine because it is pretty much feature complete. It could be improved, yes, but it has the biggest set of features from all of them. So first of all, it has workers. There are quite a few workers that run in the background. It has documentation. It runs the analysis. And that's pretty cool because you want to see if your packages are still compatible with what's out there in the world. This is how it looks like. I think this is one of the best looking solutions out there. And just comparing those again, all of those show a README. That's pretty good. Only PubNet shows the analysis and the API docs. All of them show a changelog, which is much better than what we get with the paid versions. Deploying on bare metal is definitely possible with all of them except for the PubDev itself, because it requires App Engine. The cloud costs for PubDev are pretty high. I do not recommend this, but the other one should be fairly easy to run on the server, like a Raspberry Pi. The activity on the repositories, PubDev is by far the most active. I mean, this is used by all of us every day, multiple times. There are new features every week. It is fairly active. PubNet is the last one that is still active. The others are basically dead. There is no development there, no maintenance. I find also interesting what kind of databases they use, because you have to save a lot of data, not only files that you download, but also like all the metadata. PubDev uses the Google Cloud Data Store database. MicroPub uses a local Hive database, so that's interesting. I think Hive is also not that well maintained at the moment. And Unpub focuses on the MongoDB, and PubNet focuses on Postgres. Especially the last two, it should be fairly easy to replace those with hosted services, so you don't have to think about backups that much. Just use a hosted service for your MongoDB or Postgres, and you don't have to add another backup mechanism, just trust those database providers. The authentication on PubDev is just with a Google account. There were multiple issues raised that people want other authentication methods like GitHub, but the Dart or the Google team pushed back and said, no, only Google authentication. Same for Unpub. Again, it's using the OAuth provider from ByteDance. You want to change this if you run this on your own, and PubNet has a simple username password solution and no others. So I think there is still something missing. So today I want to introduce you Minibar, which is another alternative that you can use. It is completely private, self-hosted, and a new version of this. I want to share some core ideas I had with Minibar. First of all, it should be self-hosted on bare metal. I really want to have everyone have a Raspberry Pi in their cellar for their private pub server. That would be great. Also, I want to be able to run it easily on Google Cloud. Google Cloud Run specifically, because that's very cheap. You only pay for the requests you get, and trust me, you will not get many requests. Mostly all of this is locally cached. I want it to be very easy to contribute. I want all of you to contribute to this project, because I think we all have to unite here and build a better solution compared to what's out there. So the backend will be in pure Dart, the front end will be in pure Flutter. Others use like an Angular front end, but we are at Fluttercon, so let's make it Flutter. It might not be the best performance, but the easiest to maintain for us. And I also want to make it as easy to deploy as possible. Yes, Docker Compose works. We can do health checks between the services, but it would be very easy to just have a single monolith. And I want to make this a full Flutter community package. I have no stakes in it. I want to share it open source with you. I quickly want to go over the architecture I thought about and the different services that we need. We have front ends, we have a Flutter front end, and we have two APIs, one API for the pub tool itself and one API for the web API. We are super flexible there. We need an admin dashboard. We have to have search, definitely. User authentication. I think if I ask everyone here, we will have a set of like 10 different wishes what we need to have as user authentication. We want workers. Yes, definitely. We want like a pub score analysis. We want the latest API documentations. And because this has to run for many, many years, as long as our projects run, it has to be secure. There has to be a way to back up all of this. We have to save this somewhere, so we need file storage and some database. So I was searching around a lot. I checked all the others, what are they using, what tools are they using. And I came to a pretty simple solution. I think some of you already know it, but I didn't until a few weeks ago. And it's called Pocketbase. And it's like a small Firebase, but in a single file, which sounds strange, but it's really a single binary that starts a web server, which wraps a SQLite database and an admin panel. I really like this because although it is a relational database and SQLite, they have a great interface for this. SQLite, by the way, speaks JSON, so you can also just use it as a NoSQL database, so no limitations there. We have all the auth providers. So whatever you wish, it's there. It's up to 16 right now, and they constantly add new auth providers, so we don't have to deal with this, and we are super flexible. We have backups right away. So that's pretty cool. You can automatically back up it to S3 or any other provider you want. And Rody Davis recently wrote a blog post. He also inspired me to look into Pocketbase and on how to run this actually on Cloud Run. The problem with Cloud Run usually is that you don't have persistent storage, which is required for Pocketbase because you have to save the database somehow. But you can actually do this by mounting a file system that is shared across multiple nodes even. And I think this is like the perfect solution because you will never scale to multiple nodes, and it is extremely cheap to run anything on Cloud Run. So for me, Pocketbase basically checks all the boxes. It has an admin panel already. We have user authentication. We have backups. It supports cron jobs by default. We have a file storage built in. We have a database, which is very capable. So there's not much that we have to actually work around to make this possible. Please go to minibar.dev today and register. You will get more information about this project. I wish I had it ready today, but I wasn't able to. And I will very soon share the progress with you and make everything open source. And then we have finally a better solution to host our own private pub packages. Thank you.